Hello and welcome to this special episode of Random Wrestling Review. Now, for a little while, specifically to Matt and Stephen actually, I've been promising that I will reveal who the best wrestler of all time is. And today, I'm going to do it. And I've got a little PowerPoint presentation as well for them to enjoy whilst I do it. And I may even make a YouTube video of this as well, just so that we've got, it'll only be the PowerPoints. Don't worry, Matt, your hair's not going to be in it. He's got terrible hair today. He's been wearing a cowboy hat before and it just looks ridiculous. Can you see the screen, guys?
I can. I like some of the people on this screen. I like the picture of Will Ospreay is from when he's 14 as well. Yep.
That's
so,
about
got a beard.
6-7 years ago. Yeah. So what I will reveal to you right now is that the greatest wrestler of all time is on the screen as we speak. Okay, he is one of these, or she, because there is one woman on this on this screen. Is on this header page. Now, I have been wrestling with this particular kind of question for a little while. Ever since, Stephen, actually, we had the conversation about who's better, Shawn Michaels or Kenny Omega. Is Kenny Omega light years ahead of Shawn Michaels? Plus, I listened to your podcasts, your last, the 12 days of pro wrestling moments, as it was, to end up your amazing podcast. And there were some comments in, I think, the last episode that you made that I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure I agree with that. Like, for example, that wrestling is so much better now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I've put together a little bit of analysis to find out who the best wrestlers of all time. Now, let's start with this. Objectives. So here's your objectives for this particular thing. My chief objective is to create a statistical model that will objectively determine the greatest wrestler of all time, okay? And I wanted to base it on some principles. So first of all wrestlers should be measured against their contemporaries rather than people from outside of their era. Now that is simply because it's not fair to judge, a random Terry Funk match against a random, Kazuchika Okada match. It's just not fair because they're dealing entirely different things. Their whole act is geared towards a different set of wants and desires from their audience. So like Bruno Sammartino, I always make this particular case for Bruno Sammartino is Bruno Sammartino wrestled the way he did because that's what the New York crowd liked. It wasn't because he was a terrible wrestler. It's just that's what they wanted, and so he gave them it, and he did it better than anybody else. That's why he headlined so many times. So all wrestlers have got to be measured against their contemporaries. Simple as that.
I agree completely with that.
Number second principle should be based on wrestlers' body of work, not direct opinions about them. So what I mean by this is, if I gave you a list of 100 wrestlers and said, give me a scoring out of 100 for each of these people, your answers would be colored by your opinions of who they are as a person, your own personal kind of experience watching them, your closeness to them, your fandom of them. Stephen in particular would be guilty of giving Will Ospreay 500 out of 100. It'd be ridiculous, right? But also it's not necessarily reliable, because it's not about their body of work necessarily. It's your kind of emotional feeling about who or how good that person is. So the model is going to be based on match quality alone, okay? Not individual wrestler rating, for example. Third principle is that longevity should be rewarded. So if you've been a wrestler for 30 years and you've been at the top level for 30 years, that should be rewarded. If you've only burned brightly for 2 years, then that shouldn't get you as far as someone who's been a top wrestler for 30 years. And finally, consistency and depth of great work should be rewarded as well. So, if you regularly have great matches and you do it every year and you do like 10, 15 great matches a year, that should be rewarded as well. So methodology is next. I've used CageMatch.net's average rating as an indicator of match quality. So this is basically people going on to Cage Match, they're members of Cage Match, they rate the matches out of 10, and then Cage Match gives an average rating for that based on all of those votes, effectively. For a match to be eligible for inclusion in the model, it must be at least 5 minutes in length, because that's what Cage Match requires. You can't rate a match which is under 5 minutes. It has to have been rated at least 5 times on Cage Match, and that's because Cage Match list their matches by, if you list them by average rating, they only show you the rating if they've been rated 5 times. And then finally, it has to have an average rating of at least 6, and I'll get to why that is in a little bit. For context, at the end of 2023, there were 23,157 matches in history that fell into this category, i.e. they satisfied all these criteria. But while all of those were eligible for inclusion, only 3,988 have qualified as per the method explained on the next slide.
I'm really excited about this. This is incredible so far. I feel like I'm enjoying Cage Match being used. I'm loving it so far. So I'm excited about what's coming next.
Cool. So only the 100 best matches of any given year are included in this model. This is to allow that judgment against contemporaries. The top 100 matches per year are determined by the average rating on Cage Match. Each match is allocated points based on their rank for a given year. So, for example, it's 100 points to the best match of the year, 99 to the second best match of the year, and all the way down to 1 point for the 100th best. Each participant in the match is then allocated an equal number of points from that match based on the number of participants in it. So, for example, for a singles match, the score is divided by 2. For a tag team match, the score is divided by 4, etc., etc., etc. To give an example of this, the number one ranked match of 2022 was the double dog collar match between FTR and the Briscoe brothers at ROH's final Battle pay-per-view. It had an average rating of 9.63 based on 483 different match ratings. So the match is given a score of 100 because it's the number one of the year. The score is then divided by 4 as it's a tag team match and there are 4 participants in the match. Therefore, Cash Wheeler, Dax Harwood, Jay Briscoe and Mark Briscoe are all allocated 25 points for the match. And this is added to their overall and 2022 totals. And as part of this, I do have a list of the wrestler of the year for every year and the match of the year for every year as well, which we'll come to later on. So I'm going to go into the top 100 now. I'm going to give you the entire top 100. But what I'll also reveal is that in the model, there are over 1,000 wrestlers. OK, so what I will say is that I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's done something like this before. I don't know about it. And as far as I know, and I'd be very interested if there is anything bigger and wider scope than this. But as far as I know, this is the best statistical analysis of who the best wrestler of all time is. OK, and the most thorough, I guess, is the word is what I'm looking for. Oh, no, I've got some weaknesses first before we go to the top 100. So there are some weaknesses, and I wanted to acknowledge them because this is what statistical analysis is all about, right? So the model disadvantages wrestlers whose career peaked all or in part before 1990. There's just no way to avoid that. The further you go back, the greater this disadvantage increases. And that's simply because, first of all, there isn't the same volume of material available like to watch on video from periods before 1990. It's just not the same amount. But also the website was open in 2001. So anything prior to that is automatically always going to be retrospectively reviewed. And then the further you go back, the less likely people are to do that. There's also an inherent bias in the fact that Cage Match is a German website and therefore does overrepresent the importance of German promotions, especially those that have been open since 2001. So in particular, Westside Extreme Wrestling probably takes a more prominent place in the model than perhaps it deserves. But it's not a massive deal. It's just a small advantage that WXW has. Also, there's a bias to the fact that Cage Match has an English translation and therefore provides a slight advantage to wrestling from English-speaking countries. And due to the popularity of Japanese wrestling in the Western world, the promotions most disadvantaged by these language factors are the Mexican promotions. For example, if there was a Spanish translation to the website, likely there would be significantly more representation from AAA and CMML in the model over history. I wanted to also go back to the people who've peaked before 1990. There's another reason why this is a disadvantage is that, and this is also the reason why I've only included matches over 6 average rating. So, for example, a good example of this is in 1985, there are only about 70 matches that have been reviewed by more than 5 people. And as you might imagine, everybody's reviewed every match from WrestleMania 1. Now, it's undoubted that had 1985 got the same representation of numbers of matches that have been rated enough, there's no way the worst matches on WrestleMania 1 would be in the top 100 matches of the year. So that's why I had to put that cap on, which means that, for example, in 1985, there are only about 40 or 50 matches in the model itself, whereas for every year after 1990, there are 100 because they're much better represented. So that just gives you another kind of explanation of why it's a disadvantage to peak before that year. But what I will say is that the people in the top 100 I don't think have been disadvantaged by that, but we'll get to that. So here comes the top 100, starting with 100 to 96. Here's the first 5. Tito Santana at number 100, Rob Van Dam at 99, 98 is Yoshihiro Takayama, 97 is Pac, and 96 Seth Rollins. 96 best ever. You can see here that you've got the point scoring, so people who are listening won't be able to see this, but I've listed the points scored for each of these wrestlers and the number of matches that are included in the model by the previous criteria. So Tito Santana, 539.183 points from 19 matches. I won't list all of the points. If you want to see all the points, you're going to have to watch the video. If I put it up on YouTube, which I may not, who knows?
Before we go any further and reveal too many more names, would you like me and Matt to guess who you think is number 1, or is that going to spoil the...
Great idea. No, great idea. Matt, you go first. Guess who do you think is going to be number 1 on this list?
I'd be shocked if it wasn't Bret Hart.
Stephen, who do you think is going to be number one?
I think it's Okada or Ospreay. Okada.
Matt, you seem like you were going to go on then after that. So sorry, I just cut you off a bit.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Okada or Ospreay. Yeah, fuck it. I'll go with Brad.
Okay, fine. The interesting one from this first five anyway, Seth Rollins. I think where he is positioned is where I would almost, not that I wouldn't be able to do this, but I would think in my head he's not one of the best ever, anywhere near close to being one of the best ever. And I think 96th is a fair reflection of where I think Seth Rollins would be. You also see here I've listed where Tito Santana, for example, won the match of the year in 1981. His match was with Nick Bockwinkel in AWA was the match of the year in 1981. Next up, Yuji Nagata, 95th, 94th, Katsuyori Shibata, 93, Mayu Iwatani. I'm going to do my best to not butcher the pronunciations of the Japanese wrestlers, so apologies if I do. 92, Shinjiro Otani, and 91, Kensuke Sasaki. Lots of Japanese wrestlers on that particular slide. Match of the year winner in 2005, Kensuke Sasaki.
Mayu Iwatani is an interesting one because she has, my memory is going in my old age, so I could almost do with like the example you gave, just the right hand side. But she's had a lot of really, really good matches over the last probably 10 years or so that I would have thought users of Cage Match would be all over like a rash. So I'm wondering now, I've seen that, whether my Okada or Ospreay one is way off the mark. It is going to be someone with, like you said, Matt, like a Brett who's got a long time, basically. Anyway, let's see. I'm absolutely, this is comfortably the best thing that's happened to me in January is watching this. So I'm absolutely loving it. Good.
I knew I had to get you on this one, Stephen, because I knew you'd be interested. Okay, so 90th is Greg Valentine, 89th Christopher Daniels, 88th Hulk Hogan, 87th Kento Miyahara, and 86th Kyoko Inui, match of the year winner in 1993. Oh, Hulk Hogan, 88th position. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Christopher Daniels is the interesting one there for me, because I think a lot of people sleep on how bloody good he is and has been for a while, but just because I think he hasn't been around for such a long while, people forget.
Well, I think this is the thing, is like, this is based on match rating, so you can't forget anybody. Nobody can be forgotten because you're rating the matches rather than rating the individual. So it means that you might not like, I don't know, a person like Chris Benoit, you might not like, for example, but you probably rate his matches completely independently of what you think of him, whereas if you rate him, you'd rate him differently. And that's just an extreme example, but that's the same for everybody. So it's all about body of work. Okay, 85th, Mark Briscoe. 84 is Kyle O'Reilly. 83, Hiroshi Hase. 82 is Bob Backlund. And 81, Dynamite Kid. Bob Backlund there, rest of the year, 1979 and 1980. Don't sleep on Bob Backlund. You could argue that he is disadvantaged by the fact that everyone prior to 1990 is, and there's a number of examples on this top 100, I will say, that are in that position. But I also think that the biggest and best wrestlers from the period, certainly in the 70s and 80s, are quite well represented by the numbers of matches that people have seen, and in the main actually benefit from the lack of matches because people go to their matches specifically. So in some ways there's a disadvantage, but sometimes there's an advantage as well. So I think they're relatively well placed in general. Bit different when you get lower down the list anyway. 80th, Randy Savage. 79th, Minoru Suzuki. 78th, John Cena. 77th, Bull Nakano. And 76th, Jay Briscoe. Stephen looks sad that Randy Savage is out on the 80th.
I am a bit sad about that, actually, to be honest. Yeah.
And John Cena is above him as well.
Yeah.
that abuses me, I must say.
John Cena's had a lot of good matches, and Randy obviously has as well. But John Cena has had a lot of. If you think about every match that John Cena's had that's 4 stars and above, if you want to take it back to stars, he's had a huge amount of good matches. So yeah, fair play to Johnny.
What I will say, and I haven't put it here, which is an oversight, is John Cena won match of the year in 2011 with CM Punk.
Yeah, 5 stars.
Okay, 75th, Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask. Steve Williams, 74th. 73rd is Harley Race. 72nd, Nobuhiko Takada. And 71, Matt Jackson. You see they're also getting more and more of the award winners as well coming through.
Yeah.
This is not Meltzer match of the year, by the way. This is the match of the year as determined by Cage Match ratings. Okay, 70th, Tatsumi Fujinami. 69th, Nick Jackson. 68th, Edge. 67th, Nigel McGuinness. 66th, Takashi Segura. I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. Edge, match of the year, 2001-2002. So the match of the year 2001 was the TLC match. In 2002, it was with Rey Mysterio against Benoit and Angle.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Nigel McGuinness, 2007 and 2008, match of the year winner against Bryan Danielson. And I can't remember who Tatsumi Fujinami's matches of the year were against, unfortunately, off the top of my head.
That's good placement for Edge.
Feeling quite nervous.
What I will say at this point, I will reveal that of the people who were in the TLC match, Edge is the only one who's made the top 100.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
5th, Daisuke Sekimoto. 64th, Shinya Hashimoto. 63rd, Low Ki. 62nd, Riki Choshu. And 61st, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Low-key, good God.
That's concerning me.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that's fair. Match of the year winner, Riki Choshu from 1984. Low Ki, yeah, interesting as well.
Long time since I've heard anything about Low-key.
Okay, moving on. 60th, Masato Tanaka. 59th, Meiko Satomura. 58th, Steve Austin. 57th, Eddie Guerrero. And 56th, Austin Aries. Now, again, this is based on body work, and it doesn't take into account draw at all. There's no talk of draw or even promos or anything. But Austin's 58th and Guerrero 57th here, and Austin Aries is above them both, which is sacrilege. But there you go. That's the way the model comes out.
I think Austin Aries and Eddie Guerrero. Yeah, I suppose Eddie's probably suffering a little bit from, as ridiculous as it sounds, maybe a little bit of longevity, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, was he like 10 years at the
10 years? Yeah.
Top end. So yeah, and Steve Austin, I guess, similar. In some
definitely.
ways, he could have gone on for years if he hadn't had his injuries.
Yeah.
Not a popular one, but I'd have Eddie Guerrero lower.
So again, this is not based on my opinion or anybody else's individual opinion. It's based on a collective opinion of people on matches alone.
Well, length of time is a key consideration in this, isn't it? So that's
Exactly. 55th, Go Shiozaki. 54th, Davey Richard. 53rd, Rey Mysterio Jr. 52nd, Dory Funk Jr. 51st, The Rock.
Wow.
So
really
I was not
so high.
Yeah, I was not expecting The Rock to be as high.
Yeah.
He had an electric 99-2000 in particular. Just so many good matches that made the top 100 list, and that's why he's as high as he is. Got Rey Mysterio Match of the Year winner 2002, as we discussed later on, alongside Edge, and Dory Funk Jr. Match of the Year winner 1970 and 79 in this lot.
It's interesting now. Top 50.
Top 50. Yes, we're into the top 50. Okay. 50th, Kevin Owens. 49th, Akira Hakuto. 48th, Claudio Castagnoli. 47th, Mick Foley. 46th, Chris Jericho.
What
are you complaining about there, Matt?
Kevin Owens top. Fuck off. I wouldn't put him in my top 200.
But that's the point. It's not based on your opinion or my opinion. It's based on everybody's. A collective opinion.
Well, everybody's wrong.
Chris Jericho 46th, quite low given his length of time, I would suggest. But then maybe not. I don't believe he should be higher, but
he definitely wouldn't be higher than that in my all-time in ring. No way. I think that's probably about. To be honest, I haven't seen much yet, which I can say I disagree with, really, in terms of anything stark.
Okay, 45th, Nick Bockwinkel. 44th, The Undertaker. 43rd, Vader. 42nd, Triple H. And 41st, Keiji Muto. Triple H's 2000 is one of the best years ever, I believe, that any individual wrestler's had. The Undertaker's Match of the Year winner in 2009, 2010, both the matches against Shawn Michaels, successive WrestleManias. And Bockwinkel, obviously, Match of the Year winner in 1980 and 81, as we said earlier on, with Tito.
Surprised that the Shawn Michaels rematch won Match of the Year, to be honest.
Oh, God, it's not going to be Shawn Michaels, is it?
Oh, God, I hope so.
Hell.
Who knows?
Oh my God! If this whole thing is to set up me getting annoyed about Shawn Michaels at the end, and I know that wouldn't have been your intention, Ben, at all, but yeah, goodness me,
no one goes through this much work to annoy someone. Oh my God! Well, maybe they do, but I don't.
I'm so excited now.
Oh God, it's pit of my stomach. Oh
okay.
God.
Moving on. 40th, Roderick Strong. 39th, Ricky Steamboat. 38th, Katsuhiko Nakajima. 37th, CM Punk. 36th, Samoa Joe. So CM Punk, Wrestler of the Year 2004. Samoa Joe, Wrestler of the Year 2005. Ricky Steamboat was in Match of the Year 1989 with Ric Flair. And CM Punk, obviously, Match of the Year winner with John Cena in 2011.
Well, I think the only one that I think stuck out a little bit maybe is Keiji Muto on the last one, which is 41, I think. But again, maybe that is given where some of his prime stuff was in terms of accessibility and how much that stuff wasn't televised, wasn't on tape, etc. In terms of if you're looking at someone's actual in-ring ability versus body of work, I suppose. But I think everything on this page that I'm looking at is probably fair.
Well, we've got a few more to go, and I think this might be the next page might be one of the first disappointments.
Oh, here we go.
For some people. 35th, Jushin Liger. 34th, Tetsuya Naito. 33rd is Gunther. 32nd, Zack Sabre Jr. And 31st, Bret Hart.
Wow.
I told you it was not my opinion. I told you it was entirely based on statistics. You also, very interesting to see Gunther, 33rd all time.
That's bloody good, that is, to be fair.
So that is a lot based on his work in WXW. So I did say it was slightly overpowered, the WXW time. And also some of his matches in Progress did score very highly too. And NXT, in fairness. So he's been a top points getter for at least 6 or 7 years from what he's done.
So the Brett thing here, are we saying that, or is the thinking here that because of Brett himself, obviously absolutely unbelievable, but a Brett versus Diesel match is probably getting like a 6.57.
That's it. That is it.
And that is it.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I mean, look, I maybe grandiosely said this is the best wrestler of all time. It's the best wrestler of the year, or the best wrestler of all time, based on the work they did, not on the work they could have had if they were facing Shawn Michaels every week, or Bret Hart was up against Booker T and Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho every week, for example.
And Shawn Michaels' second career is going to get him higher here because he had, a lot of, again, like the Cena thing, a lot of Michaels was a license to print for 4.25, 4.5 star matches all the time. So I'm not surprised he's higher up.
I'm starting to think Kurt Angle's going to be quite high.
He will be 100%. Yeah.
Okay, well, you might not be too worried about Shawn Michaels because he's up next. 30th, Aja Kong. 29th, Naomichi Marufuji. 28th, Shawn Michaels. 27th, Sami Zayn. 26th, Kenta.
What?
So Sami Zayn, Wrestler of the Year in 2011, Match of the Year in 2014 with Adrian Neville, interestingly. Shawn Michaels was Match of the Year in 2009, 2010. Aja Kong was, I think, the only woman who's had 2 Match of the Year wins in 93 and 2000. Kenta was Match of the Year in 2006 with Naomichi Marufuji, who's also on the same group of wrestlers.
Great match of Ospreay last year. Everyone should go and find because it was very, very good.
There is one wrestler in the top 20 or so that I was shocked by. Okay, we're in the top 25 now, so things are going to start getting real. 25th, Jun Akiyama. 24th, Akira Taue. And 23rd, Kurt Angle.
There he is.
There he is.
Rest of the Year 2001, Kurt Angle. Match of the Year winner in 2002. Interestingly enough, Wrestler of the Year has only been won by 2 WWE superstars ever, Triple H and Kurt Angle in 2000 2001.
Yeah.
We also get some of the silly numbers of Match of the Year winners. So, for example, Akira Taue, 1990, 91, 95, and 96 Match of the Year winner. Okay, next 3. 22nd, Kota Ibushi.
Oh, Manami Toyota. Sorry, I'm spoiling things here, but I'm going to shut up now.
22nd, Kota Ibushi. 21st, Terry Funk. 20, Manami Toyota. She is the highest ranked female wrestler on the list, Manami Toyota. Wrestler of the Year 1995. Terry Funk was Wrestler of the Year 1981 and 1983 and Match of the Year winner in 76, 77 and 79. And Kota Ibushi was Match of the Year winner in 2015.
I mean, for me, when I went back and did, when I did watching all the Meltzer 5-star stuff, discovering Manami Toyota's work is one of the best things. I would have been quite happy if she'd won the whole thing, and I couldn't have argued. I can't argue with anyone who says she's the best in-ring wrestler of all time. Matt, go out of your way to find some of her stuff on YouTube because she's absolutely phenomenal. All Japan Women's. I've got I think it's 6 box, about 24 disc set of hers, and I threw some of that on during my COVID Christmas. I'm like, she's absolutely out of this world. So yeah, I guess some of that is probably just not enough matches that people have got access to rate, I suppose. But yeah, she's out of this world.
She may be 20 on this list, but I bet she's no Trish Stratus.
Oh my god.
I think the other thing that she suffers from, and as do most of the All Japan women, is that I think there was some kind of thing in the 80s and 90s where the wrestlers could only wrestle up to a certain age and they had to kind of stop or get out of the way for other people. I have to check that, but I'm sure I've heard people talk about that in the past where they may have been able to start wrestling again later on, but they had to stop for some reason.
I think definitely 80s. I don't think she stopped, but definitely in the 80s that was a thing. Yeah.
And also obviously the fact that women's wrestling became massive in the 90s, but then kind of the whole thing crumbled towards the end of the 90s, and I think they all suffered from that. Okay, moving on. 19th, Shingo Takagi. 18th, Antonio Inoki. 17th, Stan Hansen. Inoki was Wrestler of the Year in 1971 and 74. Match of the Year winner in 1970, 71, 75 and 84. Shingo Takagi, Wrestler of the Year 2021. Still at New Japan, I believe, Shingo Takagi.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the next bit. AJ Styles, 16th. Kenny Omega, 15th. Chris Hero, 14th. Now, he was the one I was shocked by, Chris Hero.
Yeah.
Rest of the year winner in 2010 and 2016. Kenny Omega was rest of the year in 2017. AJ Styles rest of the year in 2002, 2003, and 2015. So it was a New Japan run, helped him to that. And the other thing that Chris Hero benefits from, and this is what I've realized, obviously, looking at a lot of the wrestlers, is that he stayed on the indies. He didn't have a long period in TNA, WWE, or AEW. And as a consequence, always had matches that were longer, more important in their context, at least, and therefore had a better chance of being a great match. So AJ Styles, you notice the gap between 2003 and 2015, because he's in TNA for like 10 years. And though he had a number of great matches, not the same number as he would have had if he'd have stayed on the indies. Just would have had many more.
See, this is really interesting for me at this point, because I can't. Danielson, Okada, Tanahashi, and Ospreay. I'm sure there's a really obvious name that I'm missing, but maybe Shibata's in there. I can't really think how we're going to get 13 more out of this. They're not obvious in my mind, but we'll find out.
We've had Shibata. He was like 97.
We've had Shibata. Okay.
We're now into the 13, 12, 11. Here we go. Giant Baba at 13th, 12th, Tomohiro Ishii, and 11th, Chris Benoit. I was quite happy that Benoit wasn't in the top 10. He nearly was, but he's there. Match of the year win in 2002. I mean, look, in fairness, a lot of these ratings go up. Were originally put in before Benoit did what he did. So it's just part of the statistics. It's there. Ishii, Wrestler of the Year in 2014 and 2020. And Baba, Wrestler of the Year 68, 69, 70, 73, and 75. Match of the Year 68, 69, and 72. Stephen, Giant Baba might be the key to unlocking who the people you're forgetting are.
Oh, Misawa, Kobashi, all of that lot. Yeah, okay, of course.
Top 10 then. In 10th place, Will Ospreay.
Oh, here we go.
2,152.042 points from 79 matches. Rest of the year 2019, 2022, and 2023. Match of the year winner 2019 and 2023. What I'll say at this point, a bit of a spoiler. Will Ospreay is probably the one person that could genuinely rise to be the top spot at some point in the future. There is nobody else in the top 10 that isn't already number one that could rise to be number one, I would suggest. Number 9, Kazuchika Okada.
Oh, there we go. There's my 2 picks out. Gone.
2,236.708 points from 74 matches. Rest of the year 2012. Match of the year 2013, 2017, and 2018. Those two obviously with Omega. Number 8, Hiroshi Tanahashi. 2,324.167 points from 84 matches. Rest of the year in 2013. Match of the year in 2012 and 2013. Number 7, Genichiro Tenryu, 2,397.283 points from 93 matches. Rest of the year in 1988. Match of the year also in 1988. A very long career. Very, very long career at the top level. Number 6, might not like this one, Ric Flair. 2,544.825 points from 94 matches. Rest of the year winner 85, 86, 87, 89. Match of the year 83, 87, and 89. Okay, we're into the top 5.
There we go.
5th. Some of the graphics here aren't great either, actually, for the top 10. Toshiaki Kawada, 2,817.375 points from 136 matches. Rest of the year winner 1992. Match of the year winner 88, 90, 91, 94, 95, and 96. One of the 4 pillars of All Japan. We have already had only one of them, which is Akira Taue. He's the second. 4th, Jumbo Tsuruta. 3,232.083 points from 124 matches. Rest of the year winner 76, 77, 78, 90, 91. Match of the year winner 76, 78, 83, 90, and 91. And the fact that he won rest of the year in 76, 77, 78, and then again in 1990 and 91, like 14 years later, shows you the length of time he was on top.
It's starting to go over my head now. I've genuinely never heard of him.
That's fair enough. One of the pioneers of the Japanese.
Pretty early years for me, yeah.
3, Kenta Kobashi. 3,341.208 points from 163 matches. Rest of the year 94 and 98. Match of the year 90, 91, 92, 95, 97, 98, 99, 2003, 2004, 2005.
And this is the difference, isn't it? The number of matches. The number of high quality matches is the difference here, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's the distinction. It's about the body of work as opposed to anything else, basically. And 2, this might give you who number 1 is. Mitsuharu Misawa, 3,410.875 points from 165 matches. Rest of the year in 97 and 99. Match of the year winner 1990, 91, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2003. Many of them with Kenta Kobashi. But number 1, the best wrestler of all time, according to this model, is Bryan Danielson. 3,578.9 points from 148 matches. Wrestler of the Year 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 4 years in a row. Match of the Year winner 2007 and 2008. A very long career, 19 years of points he got overall, and that includes the fact that he got 0 points for a number of years whilst he was in WWE. But Danielson is the number one. Any thoughts on Danielson's victory?
I think it's a really interesting model, actually, because I think that what I haven't seen much of Jumbo Tsuruta, but I've seen a fair amount of Misawa. Where was Kobashi in the end?
Third,
yeah. And their stuff is incredible. There's no doubt about it. It's just absolutely incredible. I guess. And Danielson is phenomenal. Like, Danielson is still banging out incredible matches. Like, his match of MJF last year is the best Iron Man match, best 60-minute match. I would say, I haven't seen every 60-minute match there's ever been, but every sort of mainstream televised one, I think it's the best one that anyone's ever done. He did it with MJF, who's a very good wrestler, but not a Bryan Danielson. So I think that's, in terms of his body of work, he's an absolutely incredible professional wrestler. I guess my slight, minor, tiny counter would be, I don't think Danielson has ever got as high in a wrestling match as Okada, Omega, or Ospreay. But then that isn't really what it's about. And I think that depending on I think Okada's kind of best days are definitely behind him. And what happens if Ospreay remains to be seen. But I think it's a really interesting take. And I think it's most of the list, I couldn't, if I was doing my own list of greatest in-ring performers of all time, a lot of the stuff in the kind of mid levels up to about 15, I probably pretty much agree with. So yeah, I'll as long as it's not Shawn Michaels, I'll take Danielson. Absolutely.
Well, what I'd say about you said about him, Danielson not reaching the heights of Okada, etc. Maybe not if you compare his matches from 2006 to matches that they're having in 2023 and 2024, but there's a 15-year gap between the two.
Yeah.
So you have to allow for that difference as well, and that's the whole point of this, is allowing for that difference in overall quality, because that's the point, you're judging them against their peers rather than across time.
Plus, he's still I don't know what, if Danielson's prime was 10 out of 10, he's probably not far off 8 out of 10 still. Sure. And actually in 2024 he could have a match with Will Ospreay for sure, and that could, we could be talking about stuff that's beyond Okada. And again, it's all subjective. Everyone's got what they consider to be the best wrestling match in history. But he is a guy that absolutely is capable of the right opponent of having the single best professional wrestling match of all time still. And even to be, and you're only talking about, I would say at this moment in time, probably 3 people on earth that could do that. And he's one of them. So I think the very fact that the matter, that says a lot, that from a subjective point of view, anyone that said this guy is the best wrestler of all time, I couldn't say I think you're an absolute idiot. I think that's a completely fair shout.
Any thoughts, Matt?
I'm not quite as high on Danielson as the number would suggest, to be honest. Not that I would remotely say that he's bad or anything like that at all. I personally wouldn't be my pick for number one, but I'm not surprised, particularly with the years that he had, like you said, 2006, 2007. I mean, God, I can remember when I was reading, Power Slam on a regular basis back, even then, I didn't know that much about Bryan Danielson, but I heard every issue. He's had the match of the month, he's had the match of the year all the time. So, like, his Ring of Honor run in particular, like, I know how sort of celebrated that was, so it doesn't shock me.
So this is not the end of the presentation. There's still a little bit more to go, because I've drawn a few conclusions from this. Because as I said, this isn't my opinion. This is just the way the statistics came out. But what it has done is informed my opinion now that Bryan Danielson really is the best ever. And I've got some reasons for that, not just because he finished number one. First one is when you compare the matches that Bryan Danielson had against the matches Misawa and Misawa had. Now, Misawa's number 2 of all time, right? Oh, no. Hang on. Before we go there, I've got Wrestler of the Year. So this is all your Wrestlers of the Year from 1968 to 2023, based on the model, not based on anybody else's awards or whatever. Will Ospreay has now won it 3 times, won 2022 and 2023. That's how good his recent history has been. You can see there Jumbo Tsuruta and his 5. Giant Baba won 5, Inoki won a couple, Terry Funk a couple, Flair's won 4, AJ Styles 2, Danielson won 4 in a row, and Chris Hero won 2, 2010 and 2016. So he really did benefit from being on the... Also, Ishii, 2014 and 2020, which I love. What a lad.
Big time.
And then here's the match of the year list. Again, unfortunately, our listeners won't be able to see this unless they watch the YouTube thing, but I can put this up as an additional kind of graphic at some point on the Twitter or on Instagram. But here they all are from 1968 through to 2023. Lots and lots of names. I've had to shorten some of them just down to surnames, because I think one was 10 wrestlers. It was a 10-man tag in a match. One of the matches of the year. But as I said, WWE really in ring, the early 2000s were their main time. So that's when they won their Wrestlers of the Year. They won 2 matches of the year in 2001, 2002, as we've already discussed. They also won in 2009, 2010, 2011, which is obviously a big period for them. Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, and then CM Punk and John Cena. So back to Bryan Danielson and why I think he's the best of all time. Compare his matches with Mitsuharu Misawa, and there's something interesting emerges. Bryan Danielson's most common opponents in the model. So these are the matches that were in the model and the opponents that he's had most matches against. From Nigel McGuinness, he had 11 matches against him that were in the model, down through to Seth Rollins, who had 7 matches in the model, and their overall rank where they are. So Nigel McGuinness was 67th, Castagnoli 49th, Austin Aries 56th, Samoa Joe 37th, etc., etc. Chris Hero's in there, who's 14th, of course. In general, their numbers are well below the numbers of the people that Mitsuharu Misawa faced. In fact, look at how many matches he had against Kobashi, Kawada, and Taue, who were all in the model, counted in the model with points, and they were 3rd, 5th, and 24th of all time. And he had 67 matches against Kenta Kobashi. He was his most common opponent. Danielson's most common opponent is Nigel McGuinness with just 11 matches. You compare that and you're like, of course Misawa scored loads of points. He was against the best wrestlers the world has ever seen every single time he stepped in the ring, pretty much. Danielson was not.
So some of those are tags, aren't they? But
loads of them.
I mean, the tags were unbelievable as well. So I think that is really and that goes back to the Brett thing, doesn't it? Brett was like flogging away against Bob Backlund and Diesel and the Undertaker and people, whereas Kobashi and Misawa, and actually you can make that comparison for Okada and Omega and Ospreay, really, because they've all got each other and they've got a lot of other really good people as well. So I think that is a really, really interesting thing about Danielson. And MJF is the prime example of that. Danielson had one of the best, probably certainly best 10, maybe best 5 wrestling matches ever with MJF, and that just goes to show how good this guy is.
Bit more on Danielson. So only 11 wrestlers have scored points in more individual years than Daniel Bryan. They are Genichiro Tenryu, Mitsuharu Misawa, Ric Flair, Terry Funk, Jun Akiyama, Kenta Kobashi, Stan Hansen, Jumbo Tsuruta, Shawn Michaels, and Takashi Sugiura, all who've had absolutely superhuman length careers. Terry Funk in particular, absolutely crazy. Genichiro Tenryu, I think something like 30 years of point scoring. So only 11 wrestlers have actually been longer than him at the top level. He's scored points on the US Indies, Japan, Europe, and the US Majors, which very, very few people have done. So he's Ring of Honor, Chikara, PWG, IWA Mid-South, Evolve, New Japan, Noah, WXW, FWA in Europe, and WWE and AEW. 18 different promotions. By comparison, Misawa, 6 different promotions, Flair 12, Tenryu 11, Tanahashi 5, Ospreay 12, and Benoit 6. So again, he's wrestled everywhere with everybody. He's had matches in the model which included 90 different wrestlers, either on his team or against him. And here's the list of all of them. Again, I won't go through all of them. This will be something, again, that people might want to watch the YouTube video for. But there is a huge list of people, and it's got everyone from Justin Gabriel to Zack Sabre Jr., from Kane to Koji Kanemoto, from Cash Wheeler to Dolph Ziggler. So, I mean, yes, the list is pretty impressive. A couple of other things I wanted to go through, and this is interesting, Stephen, because we've all been quite interested in this one. Who is better, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels? So I want to talk about this a little bit, because here is a chart of their points and how they accumulated them and how Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart. Now, again, this is difficult for me to explain to people in an audio way, but basically what the chart shows is that Bret Hart's points started to be accumulated in 1982 and Shawn Michaels started to be accumulated in 1986. Bret Hart, of course, stops wrestling in 1999 and at the end of 99, doesn't accumulate any more points. Shawn Michaels, however, came back to the ring in 2002 and then wrestled until 2010. So he had 8 years after Bret had stopped wrestling to accumulate all these points. And in fact, he didn't actually overtake him in points until 2008. So that shows you the importance of Shawn Michaels' career going for that extra length of time. If Bret Hart hadn't got injured in 99 and had seen out his contract with WCW, he might even have had a couple of matches in 2000 in WCW, although maybe unlikely. But at that point, he may very well have gone back to WWF, even on a part-time basis, even if it wasn't until 2003, 2004, 2005, at which point he probably would have had a few more matches that got points in the thing. So Shawn Michaels only beat him, I think, by 4 places in the actual overall list, and by about 100 points, I think it it is in the end. So I think what it says is that it shows that the model isn't perfect because there's no way to account for time that they didn't wrestle. I mean, obviously there's the period in the middle of Shawn Michaels' career where he didn't wrestle as well, which were peak years for him, or would have been. But it also shows that what the model is showing there is that, Bret, the only difference between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart is the extra years Shawn Michaels had on Bret in his career. That's really the only difference.
Well, yeah, and also I would say that when they were peers, Bret was ahead of him by the looks of this on this.
That would be
this
interesting
chart.
one. I'd have to look in terms of. Well, I guess they are because the chart does show that. But I'd be interested to hone in on those peak years, perhaps from I don't know, maybe 88 through to 97. Because they're the only years that are comparable. You can't compare Shawn Michaels' years after that. It's difficult. Yeah. It's really difficult. But basically, they're the same. They're as good as one another, basically, is what I'm saying. Even when you look at the fact that Bret's, 4 places behind Shawn Michaels.
Have you got the slide coming next about how many TV jobs Shawn Michaels did during this time?
No, unfortunately not. I did want to go to Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. Now, originally, when I did this, I was going to actually do these first and give you a chance to decide which one you thought was going to be first. Now you obviously know. And actually, I would say that this is a much less close battle, even though Kenny Omega is famed for being one of the best wrestlers ever. The statistics don't bear that out in the same way as they do for Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay genuinely could end up being, by this model, the greatest of all time. But what I would say for him is, as you can see, from Kenny Omega, 2021 starts to level out because he doesn't wrestle as much. The injuries start to take over, and of course got another injury now. Will Ospreay has just gone to AEW. His amount of points will start to level out. They will severely start to level out. Actually, this table I think is taken from when I didn't have 2023 in the model, actually. So I think the gap's even bigger between these two now. So I think now that Will Ospreay's in AEW, I think it will start to slow down the number of points he gets. It's borne out by everything I've seen. Also, what's interesting is nearly every wrestler slows down after about 10 years. Just simply because when they're at the beginning of their career, they're much more cutting edge than they are by the later part of their career. Bryan Danielson's probably the one that belies that a little, although he didn't score many points for 10 years whilst he's in WWE. So when they're making their money, they're not making the big
absolutely.
matches.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to include this is because this also leads me to the top 20 British wrestlers of all time on the list. So Will Ospreay's number 1, obviously Zack Sabre Jr. number 2, Nigel McGuinness, Dynamite Kid, Pac, Billy Robinson, Davey Boy Smith, Tyler Bate, Marty Scurll, William Regal, Doug Williams, Chris Brooks, Pete Dunne, Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm, Trent Seven, Drew McIntyre, Johnny Saint, Johnny Kidd, and Michael Oku. I thought you might be interested to see, Stephen.
Yeah, Michael Oku's great. Yeah.
Johnny Saint made the list, and Johnny Kidd, even though none of their peak career is on the list at all. So Johnny Saint, his matches from 2008, I think, first of all with Mike Quackenbush, did some work with Mike Quackenbush. He also wrestled, who's the other one? Of course, Bryan Danielson also faced Johnny Saint. These guys are placed 600, 700, and 800 in the overall list. I thought I'd just show you the British wrestlers.
That's great.
And I think that's the lot. So we're done. There we go. Like I said, I think, I'm not absolutely certain because I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody who's done something out there. But as far as I know, and I would be very, very interested to see anything else that's been out there that's done this. But as far as I know, this is the most exhaustive attempt at measuring who the best wrestler is of all time. It won't answer the question definitively, but it's a damn good addition to the debate, in my view.
I thought that was an absolutely phenomenal piece of work, Ben. So, yeah, that was really great. I loved watching through that. So, 3 cheers for you for putting that together.
Fair play. That was very insightful. That was good.
Yeah, I don't know why I do these things. Like I said, I like looking at lists of winners of things. Yeah. I don't necessarily like watching it. So that's all this was. But this is something I do like watching. So it's an interesting one. So, yeah, that is our episode for this week. I hope that wasn't too onerous to listen along to, because I realized a lot of that was visual, but I tried to explain as much of it as I could as we went. So my pronunciations may also have let me down a little bit on that front as well.
No, I think you did a great job. You nailed all the Japanese names, Ben. So I think you did a great job.
I was worried that what's his name? There's a guy in AEW that's quite highly rated.
Konosuke Takeshita?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Konosuke Takeshita. I was really worried it was going to come up because and as a consequence, I was learning his name for ages because I heard it on a podcast and I was like, oh, that's how you pronounce it. I would have thought it was Konosuke Takeshita. But then they're like, no, it's Konosuke Takeshita. And I was like, right, I've got to practice pronouncing that name because it's a really difficult one to do. And I got it down now, but it ultimately wasn't in the list anywhere near the top 100. So all good. Matt, thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure as always, gentlemen.
Stephen, thank you for your contributions too.
Loved it. Really good stuff.
This has been the Random Wrestling Review. We'll be back again very soon. Until then, take care.